Moved here with my wife and my 2 boys. Now have 2 daughter-in-laws and 5 grandchildren, all Idahoans. And I pastor the Cowboy Church. I've been full-time pastor for 21 years. Ran for office 3 years ago for commissioner. Won a 2-year term. Re-ran, won another term. And as commissioner, I started dealing with the state on things and the federal government on things. And I started seeing the overreach, and then COVID came in. And when COVID came in, giving everybody a benefit of a doubt, we didn't know what we were going to be looking at. And so there was a possibility that it could in fact be catastrophic. Shortly into that, we found out that it wasn't quite as catastrophic as they were wanting it to be. And so, as I started following good science, along with the bad science that the media was pushing out, I found out that it was, in fact, not what they were telling us it was. Is COVID real? Yes, it is. Is it man-made? Yes, it is. With that, they found out that it wasn't as bad as they needed it to be. So they had to start pushing the media. Then they had to push the vaccine, none of which actually works. And so they started with the mandates. And if you've watched TV over the last 3 weeks, you've seen a commercial with our present governor where he comes out and says Idaho never had lockdowns, never had any mandates. And of course, if you were here 2 years ago, the first thing he did was lock down the churches. Being a pastor, I knew about that. Being a county commissioner, I knew about the other lockdowns. And then they started the mask mandates. Well, he said that we never had a mask mandate, but when he left the state the first time last year and came back, he rescinded an executive order that the lieutenant governor had given, ending the mask mandate. Well, if we didn't have a mask mandate, you shouldn't have to end it. So those are 2 lies that he's looked at every citizen in the state of Idaho straight in the face and just flat lied. That we never had lockdowns, we never had mask mandates. October of 21, he came back to the state the second time, and something very unique happened to Idaho. He rescinded a second executive order that the lieutenant governor had issued. But this time, and it didn't surprise anybody because he rescinded the first one. We knew he was going to rescind the second one. But this time he went on camera, looked at every citizen in the state of Idaho, and lied. And he said, and this is a quote, "She did not have permission to do what she did. She did not have the authority. All she did was make a big mess for me to have to clean up." And one of 3 things happened when he got in front of that camera and said that. He either willfully and intentionally lied to every citizen in the state of Idaho with the intent to mislead them and discredit our lieutenant governor. Or B, he's totally ignorant of Article 12 in the Idaho State Constitution that states if the governor leaves the state, the lieutenant governor is governor. No act of legislation. Speaker of the House doesn't have to swear them in. It is an automatic and instantaneous transfer of power as soon as his foot crosses that state line. So A, he willfully lied to you, or B, he's ignorant of Article 12 that governs his office, or C, all the above. So now we've got a governor that on no less than 2 occasions has went publicly on camera and lied to every citizen in this state intentionally. Now, I'm getting older and my memory ain't what it used to be, but I can remember back to the lockdowns. Obviously, he cannot. We've got some other people that's running for governor. One's a 30-year-old kid. Super nice guy. I've met him. I like him. Got a good personality. Friendly. Good speaker. Has experience in absolutely nothing. But he's a nice guy. We've got another one that's running that is surrounded in controversy. Said that she's totally against taking any federal money, CARES Act money or ARPA money, yet for the payroll protection plan, $300 and some odd thousand went to her private business. Now she wants to tell you how she's going to budget the state, but as Lieutenant Governor, her budget for her office is going to have a $15,000 shortfall to meet the budget in June, even if she fires 2 of the helpers that she has. So we've got people in government that are constantly overreaching and not telling people the truth. I would rather tell you the truth and you be mad at me because you didn't like the truth, or maybe the truth hurt, than to make God mad and tell you something that tickles your ears. I won't tickle your ears. I will always tell you the truth for what it is and lay it out on the line. And whatever it is, that's what it'll be. We've watched the overreach of federal government. We watched CARES Act money come in to the state. 2 years ago, CARES Act money came to the state, $1.4 billion, with the instructions to dole it out to the 44 counties in Idaho according to populace. $289 million got shaved off of that and distributed to the 44 counties according to populace. Now, I didn't take calculus or trigonometry or physics, but I did pass 3rd grade math. That leaves $1,101,000,000 somewhere. And to this day, nobody has answered that question. When those instructions came to Idaho, as county commissioner, we got a certain amount that said was coming to Bonner County of the CARES Act money, with the instructions to use it for a refund on your property tax and broadband expansion. I was the only commissioner in the state of Idaho that questioned that. And I took it to our civil attorney and said, why does this stink? Is something wrong here? And he looked at it, he said, because it's illegal. And I said, well, then that's probably a problem. So we had an executive session with the prosecutor, assistant prosecutor, our civil attorney, a law firm that we use for outside stuff that has to do with federal money. That those guys are experts, that's all they deal in, CARES Act, FEMA, FAA, all that, emergency management, they specialize in that. In that meeting, our treasurer brought forth 4 state laws that block any avenue for her to give you a refund on your property tax from the previous year. You had your property that year. That was the tax rate that year. You were charged accordingly, like everybody else. There was nothing wrong with what you were charged. That blocks any avenue to give you anything back. If there was a mistake, it would credit forward to the next year. So that's 4 state laws that he asked us as commissioners to violate. Then the federal attorneys started going through the CARES Act laws and the Treasury laws that we would be violating if we followed Brad Little's instructions. There was a dozen plus federal laws that we would be violating, which I automatically knew that raised the bar a little bit. And at the end of it, he said, gentlemen, as commissioners, you have the authority to follow the governor's instructions or not follow the governor's instructions. But I need to share something with you as your attorney. Brad Little, as governor of the state of Idaho, has given these instructions. Once the money is in the county's hand, he is free and harmless. And if you follow his instructions, you 3 gentlemen will in fact spend a lengthy term in a federal penitentiary. Well, I didn't really have a desire to get a degree in college from a federal penitentiary. So he offered to draft up a lawsuit against the governor of the state of Idaho in person in his capacity as governor of the state. I said, I'm all for that. And so we filed suit against Brad Little in person, and he had to pay for his own attorney. Maybe why I didn't get the invite to the Christmas party. So over a period of months, the Attorney General stepped down and defended him pro bono, and found out real quick there was no way to defend him because he had asked us to violate federal law. And so through a process, he backed off, withdrew them instructions, and we went to the next thing. Then the ARPA money come to the state of Idaho and came to the county, 8.8 million, about 8 months before we got any rules. They had some preliminary basic guidelines that said counties could use it for sewer and water infrastructure, which Bonner County has neither one of those, so we're like, okay, they sent us money we can do nothing with. So it's in a trust account, waiting to find out, what are we going to do with it? We can't use it according to their law. So as the rules came forward about 8 months after the money did, that's always suspicious, isn't it? They give you the money, and then we'll send you the rules later. Go ahead and have a good time. So started reading through the rules, me and the county clerk, and got to section 9A, and it said, all recipients will follow all federal guidelines and regulations and executive orders. And it really puzzles me why I, not being a lawyer, saw that and went, this is a problem. And found out that I was the only commissioner in the only state in the United States of America that caught that sentence. You know, if you're in a management position or you've been elected to represent the people, you have a responsibility to read what you're getting the people into. So I brought that up to the other two commissioners, and they're like, wow, this is a problem. And so I went to our attorney again. I said, all executive orders. Now, is this referring to an existing rule or an existing executive order applying to CARES Act? And he said, no, it's not. If it was, it would say executive order number and whatever that number is. He said, that's not the case here. And I said, so what you're telling me, the way that's worded, they can come back and say, you spent the money, you got to have a mask, or you got to have a vaccine card, or you got to have a yellow Volkswagen, fly only Cessna aircraft, baby's got to be born on Wednesday. They can add anything they want. He said, anything. It is a wide open gate to come back and say, well, this is the executive order today. That's a problem. And so Bonner County has left that money in a trust account because we have no way to spend it with the security of knowing, following their rules, that they're not going to add something to it. Now, in the United States, the Constitution has some blocks in there that prevent the government from making you go into a contract unambiguously or ambiguously. It has to be unambiguous. In other words, there can't be anything hidden in there that you do not know about. That is blocked by the Constitution, providing you have a federal administration that follows law, which recently that could be a problem. But when you get to 9A, then we find out that here's a clause that is ambiguous, totally 100%. And there was certain suggestions by people in our office that goes, yeah, but what's the chance that they will ever do that? The next day, they did it in Arizona. And I brought the headlines in. I said, I don't know. You tell me what the chance is. Well, they can't do that. I said, yeah, I know they can't do that. They just did it. So what happens, every county, every city, every state in the union has taken this money and they are so enamored and slobbering at the mouth because here comes the helicopter dumping out all this free money. They're blinded by it and they're not paying attention. Is that what you want for leaders? I don't want to go into a battle with a general or a colonel or a master sergeant that has no clue as to what we're getting into. I want him to know what we're looking at. As a leader, I want my guys to understand what we're going into. And what the state is going into right now is you've got a governor that has said he ended the mask mandate last Tuesday. That sounds good, doesn't it? The lieutenant governor had 2 opportunities to do that and didn't do it. Why? Why did that not happen? You want to make headlines and do a political statement as lieutenant governor? You had 2 golden opportunities to end that emergency and didn't do it. Why? Fear. No other reason. Fear. Did it occur to? Absolutely it occurred to them. Why didn't they do it? Fear. And this is why. Because as soon as the lieutenant governor would have ended that emergency, the federal money was shut off. Right there. ARPA, CARES Act, all of it would have shut right off. And that would have removed the hooks that the federal government had on the state of Idaho. And the backlash from the governor and the rest of them in legislation and in control would have all had to soil their britches. And the backlash on the lieutenant governor would have been horrendous. There's a general here and there's a lieutenant colonel here. And I'll promise you, they don't want to go into battle with a sergeant major that's afraid. They want one that's going to do the job they've been sent to do. Am I correct? Fear should not be part of your makeup if you're in leadership. If you're going to lead, lead. If not, go home and watch TV. Could have ended the emergency twice. Brad Little ended it last Tuesday. Why did he do that? Because legislation on Monday passed a resolution ending the emergency a day before. But it won't come into effect till April 17th. Why didn't he end it right there on the spot? Anybody want to know? You want to know?
Yeah, tell us.
Remember when ARPA money first came? It was going to come in how many phases? 2. Guess when the next one rolls out? In about 2 weeks. Once the money gets here, he'll end the emergency. By the time the backlash from the feds start, the primary will be over. He'll be in office, and you'll go right back into emergency and lockdown because you got the new strain coming called another con. That's why I'm running for governor. I laid in the emergency room. They took me up to ICU a little over 2 years ago. Gave me less than 5% chance of going out of that hospital. 8 doctors was looking at me. That night, early Sunday morning, I'm laying there, and I said, God, if I'm going, and this is how it's happening, I'm good with that. I've had a good ride. But if you have something else for me to do, here am I. As a pastor, I knew the risk in making that statement to God, because if you make yourself available to Him, He's fixing to open the door. It may not be that day, but He's going to open a door and push you through it. So for me, it was not optional. I'm doing this because He told me to. If I fall flat on my face, I fall flat on my face doing what He told me to do. If I win for Him and for you. I am in this to do a job. I'm 67 years old Sunday last week, 2 days ago. I don't need a career. I am not a career politician. One of the ones running said, not a career politician. 10 years as a representative, took 2 years off because I don't want to be a career politician. Ran for lieutenant governor, serving 4 years. Now running for governor, that's another 4 years. I'm sorry, everywhere in the English-speaking world, 18 years is a career. If I say something, I want it to be truthful. If I tell you I'm a knuckle-headed redneck out of East Texas that would dive out the window of a Chevy pickup truck running 30 miles an hour and bulldog a white-tailed deer, I'm telling you that because it actually happened. Was it a wise choice? No, it was not. Did a lot of thought go into it beforehand? No, it did not. How did it work out? It worked out just like I planned it. Very poorly. But I survived it. The fence post broke my fall before the impact of the ground, so it was all good. But it was a very good learning process. And had my bruises. Everybody had their laugh. And the deer walking off going, what the heck just happened? But you need somebody who's not afraid to push back against the federal government, protect the sovereignty of the state of Idaho, and take the public lands back. 62% of the state of Idaho is not taxable because it's public land. The only thing BLM has managed to do is nothing. The Bureau of Land Management have regulated theirself to where they can't manage anything. Statewide, BLM and the Forestry Service produced less than $1 per acre for the entire state. That's very poor farming. You can do that good in the desert, growing cactus and selling them to Home Depot. They can't manage anything. The firefighter's manual for the Forestry Service 4 years ago was about this thick. The new one is about this thick. Why did it get that thick? Because trees burn different than they did 40 years ago. Right? No. Because all they know how to do is come up with new ideals on how to regulate more things, so that by the time that anybody actually makes a decision, you don't have to put the fire out because it burned out. Might have been 4 million acres, but they don't know how to manage anything. The land is within the borders of the state of Idaho. Idaho is supposed to be sovereign over the things inside their borders. 32 other states in the history of this country have taken back their public lands. There is an avenue to do that. There is a way to do that. And when I asked the question, what's it take to do that? The lawyers I were talking to looked me dead in the eye and said, a governor with some backbone and somebody with some courage. I said, I got that. I just need to know how it's done. So we know how to get it done, but you got to have a governor that'll do it. I will take back the lands in Idaho. Idaho has the ability to be one of the richest states in the United States. Like Texas, 100% self-supportive. Yes, ma'am.
What is your plan to take back the lands?
Started on day one.
To do what?
Take back public
How
lands.
are you going to do it?
It will take some processes. It will take a handful of lawyers and a governor that will push it through. And it will be a fight, but it takes someone who's not going to quit. So failure is not an option. It's a doable thing, and it can be done. We've got the only deposit of cobalt in the United States. We've got uranium in the state of Idaho. We've got gold, we got silver, we got gas, we got oil. We've got 28 different jewels. And we've got a heck of a timber industry.
And you got water.
And we got water. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Steve, on that, I had a great discussion with a buddy of mine about 10 years ago about that. If we get the state lands back, are we keeping them or are you privatizing them?
Keeping them.
Good. Because then we'll lose all of our hunting area. It'll look like Texas.
I hunt
It'll look
fish.
Texas, but you gotta pay to hunt in Texas.
Yeah, there's 3 national forests in Texas,
And there's,
and they cover a pretty good bit of ground. I
They're
mean,
small
not
compared to
for
ours.
much as
Yeah.
Texas is,
so
but
you keep them at state and we manage them as a state,
manage them as a state.
right?
We will manage the lands. We will run good forestry. IDL does an excellent job of managing forest lands. They do a fabulous job. We have less fire damage on IDL land than we do on federal lands. The fires in Idaho year before last on federal land produced more carbon emissions than all the power plants in Europe for 1 year. Because they do not manage the lands. Now, benefit of the doubt, there is some places in Idaho that fighting a fire is a nightmare because it's up and down. Canyons make perfect chimneys. But if the land was managed and that timber was managed, the fire danger would be much less. The fire, once it started, would be much easier to manage. So it's all about managing what you got and taking care of it. The federal government doesn't know how to do anything but regulate itself to a standstill. If I become the governor of Idaho, we're going to do a Trump thing. Before any bill passes through that legislation, you're going to get rid of 2. You're going to get rid of 2 of the regulations that you've put on that hinder private businesses and interstate businesses. We're going to make Idaho a viable state. A state that is run of the people, by the people, and for the people, not for the government. We need somebody that will fight, we need somebody that will manage, and we need somebody that can do basic math. Anybody want to take a shot at where that 1.1 billion is? I'll help you with the math. Yes, ma'am.
You know I have tons of questions.
I do.
I could keep going. You're talking about the federal lands, you're talking about taking them back, managing them, et cetera, et cetera. Are you planning on getting rid of property tax?
That would be a tough one to do. We all like our roads.
Yeah, but if you're managing the federal lands
If
property.
you're managing the land, you're replacing a lot of that revenue. So that will take place. Right now, you got $2.5 billion in excess revenue. All of a sudden, you know what, 6 months ago, all of a sudden they found $1.5 billion in extra revenue. I don't know who you have for a bookkeeper that didn't know they had an extra $1 billion in revenue, but you need to fire that one. So now we're at $2.5 billion plus in extra revenue. Now, a couple of things have happened if you got a state the size of Idaho and you got 2.5 billion extra in revenue. You've either overtaxed me, or you don't know how to use my tax dollars. Like fix the 3 major thoroughfares in Idaho. Let's go ahead and get them fixed. The feds can pay their part later, but we got the money to get them fixed. Or how about grocery tax? Everybody likes paying grocery tax, right? Because there's 3 essential things to the existence of life: air, water, and food. They're taxing our food. They're trying to take our water. What's it going to cost for air? As soon as they figure out a way to tax that, they will. Grocery tax produced last year, 2021, $143 million in tax revenue. And that's it. And when we've listened to the candidates all over the state, everywhere we go, and that comes up, and from the governor and from the Speaker of the House, you get the same story. The reason we have grocery tax is so the people who are tourists come in and they pay their part. So are you telling me the bulk of the groceries in Idaho are bought by tourists? Tourists are eating more groceries than the people that live in Idaho? I don't know about y'all, I don't buy that story. But the Speaker of the House said, yes, but we have a grocery tax credit that the elderly and low income can file for their tax credit and get sometimes $200 a year back. Well, news break, Mr. Speaker of the House. An older couple on Social Security doesn't have to file taxes. So unless somebody's telling them they can do this, they're not getting the tax credit either. So the people that you say you're helping, you're not. And then Brad Littles, this was in Jim County, in his home county, he got up there and did a State of the State address at the Lincoln Day dinner, and he said, I just finished the greatest tax break in the history of Idaho, and it's going to pass the House and send the committees. Now, there's some interesting thing about the committees. The Speaker of the House, Scott Betke, appoints all the members on those committees. And he's joined at the hip with our governor. The first part of that went through in record speed. No bill has ever passed committees that fast in the history of Idaho. Coincidence. But and I thought, I just can't wait to look at that tax bill. After he gave that, when it came time for the candidates to speak, I spoke my platform, and at the end I said, for 50 years I've heard tax break, tax reform, tax incentive. I've never seen one of them show up on my tax bill. Ever. Ever. But it always shows up as a tax shift. Over the next week, we finally got it where we could read it. It wasn't a tax shift. It was a tax shaft.
Is this 741?
That's the one. So, with all that, he said, we're going to reduce your property taxes. We're going to do a 2% increase in sales tax. And you're going to be happy, and we'll all live in utopia ever after. I may have took some copyright liberties on that last sentence. Okay. So did the grocery tax go away? No. Your grocery tax will go up 33%, not 2%. But they said 2%. If I'm charging you 6 cents, but now I'm charging you 8 cents, did I go up 2%? No, I went up 1/3 of where I started from, didn't I? That's a 33% increase in your grocery tax. Wayfare tax. Amazon moved to Idaho 3 years ago. Everything they sell online that is delivered in state is subject to sales tax. Over the last 3 years, that has produced $750 million in sales tax that they kept in a bucket because they were not sure what to do with it. If you've got legislators and a government that doesn't know what to do with your tax dollar, somebody else needs to be handling your tax dollar. That will replace grocery tax 2.5 times. So is grocery tax going away? No. They want it to go up. With the property tax you were going to see go down, this is how they helped you. County sets their budget on October 1st. We base our budget on the amount of tax dollars that will be coming into the county for the year. Once that tax base is set, that's all we get, other than other certain revenues. So the state's coming in and going, well, because we want you to have a cut in your property tax, we're not going to let the county tax you the way they've been taxing you. So if you've got 20 acres and you've got a homeowner's exemption on your 1 acre, the county can only tax you on that one house that's exempt, and now 5 acres. So if you had 9.5 acres previously, and you had a homeowner's exemption for the house and 1 acre, but you were getting forestry or ag exemption on the other 8, that's gone. Because now 5 is with the house, and all the little guys take it in the shorts again. And we only get to tax you on the exempt part. And you don't get the exemption for the other part. But the state is going to make the county's budget whole as to what it was set this year. They're going to make up the difference for us. Now you got this bucket of $2.5 billion. The county was taxing right here, but now they can only tax right here. But the state's going to make up this part. Now, if nothing changes, at some point in time, that $2.5 billion bucket's going to run dry, isn't it? It's going dry. Guess who's going to make up that difference? You. Y'all ever heard of Proposition 13? We're going to freeze your property tax. It can never go up again. Till you sell your house, and then the new guy has to pay it at that rate at that day. It sounds good, doesn't it? What happened in California? They did that, but then the price of gas went to what? Then the price of everything else went to what? Because they taxed everything else heavily to make it up. So it's all smoke and mirrors, and it's a new virus called Little's Another Con. So the tax, it was more than a tax shift, it's a tax shaft, because we're all going to pay more than we were paying. We're just paying it through different windows. You need a government that will present something honestly and what it is. Yes, ma'am.
I know, I'm just itching to ask this question now. You're talking about the state making up the difference on the county taxes.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that the state can dictate to the county whatever mandates they want?
There you go. They've taken away budget authority from the county. Guess who now has the thumb on the county?
And they can take our water, they can take our timber, they can take our
There we
land.
go.
Okay, as it is, kids in this area can't grow up and buy land in this area and continue to have the lifestyle that they.
Your present governor is chairman of the Governors Association. Your current governor was voted by China as China-friendly. So between CARES Act and ARPA and the administration we have on the federal level, and your governor sleeping in bed with them, you're going to have to change USA from United States of America to United Socialist America. That's what's happening. If we don't get a governor that will stop it at the state line, then we will end up stopping it on our front porch. And when it comes to our front porch, we all lose.
So you're gonna step into the Western Governors Association, or you're not going to, or are you going to put Inslee, Brown, and Newsom in check?
In jail if they come to Idaho.
You can stay out of the Western Governors Association?
I can.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have to join anything. This is America.
That's the Western, there's a national one as well.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
national one
there's
as
a
well.
national. Would you join that?
No.
No.
Good.
No. I get voted in to run the state of Idaho. I don't care
Did
what
you
they
hear-
I don't care what they do on the other side of the
Did you
border.
hear Joe Biden say yesterday that there's a new world order and we're going to be in charge?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Another one of his classified
Yeah.
meetings that he blurted out.
Come May 17th.
Well, I understand that. That's not the point. The point is, he's admitting it, and they're really not stopping
Well, they're not,
everybody talking
they're
about it.
not hiding anything.
And the plan is to take.
Best case scenario, May 18th. I step in front of your camera and go, there's going to be a new sheriff in town. Things are going to change. We will protect the state of Idaho at whatever the cost is. We will take back our state.
Does the governor have any power over the counties that have taken election away from the sheriff and are appointing sheriffs?
Are you talking about Kootenai County?
I'm talking about the 41
Yeah,
41 counties.
yeah, 44 counties. The elections are all under the clerk, which is an elected office. So he's an elected official, just like the sheriff or the prosecutor, commissioner.
I took his question to mean the alternative forms of government that Kootenai County is currently trying to implement. They're trying to take elections away from the sheriff and from.
They can't do it.
Well, you
State
think
law,
that.
state
That's
law
what-
prevents it.
That is the process they've been dealing with for months now.
Right. Yeah, and not one person has stopped to go, hey, guys, there's a problem. These darn state laws. You know, it's kind of like none of the governors are going, hey, President, Constitution, come back to America. Because nobody's saying anything. They're getting all the free money. And everybody says, well, if we don't spend it, someone else will. It's our tax dollars coming back. ARPA and CARES Act money is not your tax dollars coming back. That's not tax dollars that's ever been collected. That's debt that's going to have to be paid.
Unrealized.
And far as I'm concerned, anybody that takes ARPA has already sold this country out. Because it gives full control to the federal government of their state, their county, and their city. And nobody is listening because they're slobbering at the mouth for the money. Well, if we don't take it, somebody else will get it. Right. If you don't drink the Kool-Aid, somebody else will. But you'll still be here and they won't. Nobody's putting their thinking cap on. Nobody's listening to what they're reading because they're not taking the time to read. This is gonna be the most important election in the history of this country, will be these elections, these primaries. And if something doesn't change in these primaries, we will in fact lose the state of Idaho.
You talked before about the ARPA, and you were mentioning earlier the attorney that pointed out the problems to you, that it was future EOs. Who was that attorney?
The one that pointed it out?
Yeah, you got.
Me and Mike Rosedale found it, and we took it to Scott Bauer and said, what's wrong with
And
this?
Scott Bauer said,
He
yeah,
said-
there's a problem here.
He said, that's a problem. He said, that is a problem. And so we had the federal guys looking at it. They were looking at it going, yeah, that's an issue. You know, and they brought forth, they did the research, they brought forth the Constitution, the clauses that prevent the federal government from coercing a state, county, or city entering into a contract that's not totally unambiguous. They have to, in other words, both sides have to know everything that's in there. But that one clause in the preliminary rules is ambiguous all by itself. And if you sign a contract that has one line in it that says, you're agreeing to do this, guess how much of that contract is binding? All of it. The final rules came forward. Everybody's reading it. I'm looking for that clause. Page 435. 467 pages, something like it. Page 435. Bam! All recipients agree to follow all federal regulations, guidelines, and executive orders, and repeated again in 441, I believe.
And
So it's in there twice.
Future executive orders, didn't it say that? Something like that?
Any executive order. Any executive order.
There's the
And
vague-
no number attached to it.
So it's like a blank check.
Also expresses in there that recipients can't do anything that's contradictory to CDC guidelines.
On what day of the week?
Yeah.
That's my problem, is they change them so often.
What does CDC have to do with a federal contract with a county or state? We're not building a hospital that does disease control.
That money is still sitting in an account in Bonner County.
It is.
Why haven't we returned it?
There's a deadline of like April 15th or something. There's that date again, isn't it? And you have to decide by then what to do with it or send it back.
Do you anticipate Bonner County keeping the money with two commissioners that want it?
You got 3 commissioners that just totally do not trust that contract. Even though we've got a legal opinion that says federal law blocks that from happening. We saw it happen in Arizona. What did Arizona have to do to stop that? They had to file suit against the federal government. How much does Bonner County want to spend suing the federal government? That'll suck up $8.8 million right now.
That they don't have.
Those guys in California charge $1,800 an hour.
Why are you going?
But
through
they
that?
put out
They're not
$1,800 an hour
local.
worth
Why
of
are you
work.
going through California attorneys?
Yeah, so, you know, if you're gonna go into battle with an attorney, take the best one you got. Take the best one you got. Because you're going in there to win, not to negotiate. These guys go into battle with the best that's available to them and everything that they can take with them that they're allowed to do, they're going to do. Why? Because they want to win. You want a $50 an hour attorney? You have planned already to fail. unless he just gets really lucky. That much I know about attorneys. So you would spend that 8.8 million defending what you're not gonna have anymore because you gave it to an attorney. And they know that. And the neat thing about the ARPA money, 8.8 million came to Idaho, or to Bonner County. Bonner County takes it and uses it according to the guidelines for the things they say you can use it for. And then they decide, well, you remember in section 14, line 2, it said, if we determine, we being the Treasury Department, if we determine you did not follow correct and proper procedures, this money will immediately become a federal debt, payable immediately. Anybody ever had dealings with the IRS? Who is their collecting agency? The U.S. Treasury Department. And they are limited to what when it comes to collect money from you?
Nothing.
Just short of taking you out that door and shooting you or hanging you, that's their limitations.
I don't know, they're the secret.
So they're gonna come and take it back.
Limitation?
Let's say they go ahead and let you spend it, and then they go, I know you thought that's what we meant to do with the money, but no, we want it back. So now you either gotta file suit, and you're gonna spend more than that trying to defend it, or you gotta pay them, and we want it by close of day today, or 5 o'clock Friday. You know what the problem with that is? Bonner County's not allowed to have that much in reserve. So now you got a county that the Treasury Department wants 8.8 million from right now, and you don't have it. Guess what's next?
They take what they
Seizure.
They take your elected officials, send them home, and they place their guys in place because you did not know how to properly manage the county business, and you've all gone to prison for fraud. And now you've got federal agents running your county. That's why I am not signing the ARPA contract. We need a governor
Does
that
this
will
need to
pay
be-
attention.
Does that need to be a unanimous vote with the county commissioners? Two, I would
Only
say.
takes two.
Okay.
Just two.
That potential is with every county, big city,
That,
in the union.
every city, county, and
That took-
state
that
is
took-
at risk.
has that language.
Every one of them.
It's by design.
Everybody wants to know where that 2.5 billion extra money came from, don't they? 1.4 billion came to Idaho in CARES Act money, and all of a sudden, on day one, 1,101 million is unaccounted for. Where did it go? I asked that on the first day. I said, where'd the 1 billion go? Somebody want to tell me? Somebody in the executive session goes, what, you think somebody took it? I said, I don't know. I'm asking the question. But one thing I do know, there's at least one person on planet Earth that knows where that $1,101 million is. Because it didn't just fall on the floor and the janitor sweep it in the trash. So a year goes by, year and a half, and all of a sudden now we got $1.5 billion of extra revenue. Then ARPA money comes to the state. Now we got $2.5 billion extra revenue. How much of that, where did it come from? Have we been overtaxed and y'all are poor managers? Where'd that extra money come from? Well, where'd the other money go to? That's what I want to know. That's my question, and it drives them nuts that I asked that question. And it drives them nuts that I threw my hat in the ring to run for governor. Because on day one, I will bring in forensic auditors, and I will find out where that money came from. And everybody that's dirty will go to prison. That I will promise you as your governor. There won't be any good old boy system. On day one, if you work for the state of Idaho and you know what happened to that money, you better start singing like a canary. Because about 2 days into it, that deal won't be there no more. You'll go with the rest of it. You got to decide what you want for a governor. Somebody that will go on TV and lie directly to your face, when previously they went on TV and told you just exactly the opposite. So it's not a secret. It's not like I'm making this up. This is all public information. But nobody's paying attention. Or do you want one that doesn't want to be a career politician that will be 18-year politician? Or do you want a 30-year-old that has qualifications to do nothing? I told him I was proud of him, what he did with his education. He quit school in the 8th grade. And he said, because I was stupid. He's an honest boy. He said, but I went back and got my GED. Then I went to college and got a master's in finance. And I said, I'm proud of you on your education. Not many people do that. Well, what have you got experience at? College. And most college degrees, if you don't get a job, qualify you to come back home. An education, if you don't apply it and get experience, is worth what? You've got a bunch of knowledge that you do nothing with. Could he be a good one? He'd make a good legislator because he's smart. He could get in there and learn the process and head that way. I understand small government. There's not one candidate running for state office that has been in small government, that knows what county government in the state's about. They passed legislation last year that took away new construction from the county. When state law says I have to tax him the same as I tax you. Our assessor has to assess his property using the same exact guidelines as they do his. Even though his may be bigger and his may be smaller, but equitably and fairly. The state comes in and goes, yeah, but he built a new house, and so you counties can't tax him but 60%, because it's a new house. He's probably happy about that. First year, he only has to pay 60% of what his taxes would be. Guess who's picking up the other 40%?
Thanks, Brian.
So everybody's goes up $1 to cover the $1,000 that he didn't pay. And it comes out of our budget. So we have to raise taxes to counteract what we can't tax. Does any of that make sense to you at all? Why on God's green earth would anybody think it's a good idea a new house is built to not put it on the tax roll? I'm sorry, that whole concept is stupid. I realize that's not a nice word, but it's an accurate word for what that bill did. And so how does that work? Well, we're taxing everybody here where they're supposed to be 100%, except for Bill. He's got a new house, so we're taxing him at 60%. So we take his money, this is the logic, okay? We take his 60% and we put it in a hat. Then we take everybody's 100% and we put it in a hat, and then with all the new construction, which is not as much as the old construction, we mix it all together, divide it by the number of parcels, and this is your tax rate. So now, instead of everybody being on a level tax base that was, let's call it 100%, it's now at 92%. So you just hammered your county budget by 8%. You're 8% in the hole before you ever start the next year. They're geniuses down there, I'm telling you. I would be a governor that if that passed the House and the Senate, I would veto it at the desk. Or send it right back and go, hey, why don't y'all go spend some time with a county commissioner and learn about this stuff? Figure out where your tax dollars are actually coming from. So you need somebody that's got local government experience that knows where the tax dollar is coming from and how the tax dollar should be spent and how to do it wisely. The 3 commissioners you have in Bonner County right now kept your taxes flat 3 years running. Just by good management and getting rid of the, well, we've always done it that way. Which, we've always done it that way would be good if you've done it right that way all the time. But that's not always the case because most government, well, it doesn't matter. It's a government job. It's somebody else's money. Accountable for their budget. Then went in and said, okay, look at your budget. Make your wish list and your budget for this year. But first go through it and tell me where you can cut $1. And if you can't cut it $1, then we'll come in and go through your budget and cut it. Is that what happened? And it worked. It worked. We have monthly department head meetings. We have quarterly budget meetings to see where you're at for the year. You know, 1 quarter's gone, you should be at the 25% level, you know, give or take. Half a year, you should be at the 50%, give or take. Some things are paid up front, it's a yearly bill. But accountability. Government can work like a business if you've got a manager that manages it like a business. But we've got people that run our governments that think it's a place to get bankrolled. We'll just tell them it's a tax break. They'll be all happy about it and we'll collect it back over here on the other side. And that way they'll vote for us. This tax bill he tried to get passed, they've been working on since they got elected so they could roll it out now and get re-elected because my tax bill's going down. Problem is, most of them haven't cleared the house yet. They keep getting shot down. So some of your legislators are actually reading and paying attention. The process works if you elect the right people. If you've got people working for you that don't produce, what do? You send them down the road. What's government do? They move them up and give them a raise.
Re-elect them.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't produce nothing there, but he's been here 23 years, so we'll make him the manager. If you've been at a place for 23 years and you're still doing the same thing that you've always done, you've either really content in doing what you do, and this is what I like to do, this is my thing, this makes me happy, I don't want to be in management. Fine. But if you've got drive, and 25 years later, let's use the military, you're still a private, there's an issue. We probably don't want him working in mission control. That's what's wrong with government. We're going to make him manager because he's been here 20 years. I don't care if he's been here 20 years. What's he do? How much has he increased and improved over 20 years? Which one, when something is going wrong, rises to the top? That's the one you move up, regardless of how long they've been there. That's the way you do it in business, but that's not the way it happens in government. But it's the way it should happen in government. I was a private business owner from the time I was 14 years old. I understand private business. I've been pastoring for 21 years. I grew up in a service station in Houston. I understand people. I understand human nature. I understand life. I understand basic math. Somebody asked me when I was running for commissioner, well, what qualifies you to run a budget of $56 million? And I said, I'm sorry. Did I miss something in math class? Because does math change when the number gets longer? What changes in math just because there's more digits? Nothing. It's the same. Just a bigger number. If you can add and subtract little numbers, you can add and subtract big numbers. So it's not rocket science. It's just common sense that's not common anymore. What do we want for a governor? We want somebody that's honest. We want somebody that understands local government. We want somebody that understands business. We want somebody that understands living in a house, raising 2.5 kids. I've never have seen that half kid. 2.5 kids, a dog and a horse. You know? Somebody that understands life and can apply that to whatever he steps into. That's what we need for a governor. And somebody that's not afraid. And if it requires bulldogging a deer out the window of a Chevy pickup truck at 30 miles an hour, I want somebody that'll do that. If it requires somebody getting ejected out the torpedo tube of a nuclear submarine off the coast of Iraq, that's the guy I want that's willing to do that. I don't want the guy that goes, no, I can't do that, I might get hurt. Well, you go back to supply and sweep the floor. Just make sure he gets the stuff he needs. We need leaders again. We need good, solid leaders. And here in the last 20 years, they've become scarce.
What can you do for our Idaho J6 defendants?
For what?
The J6 defendants from Idaho. January 6th, incarcerated political prisoners from Idaho. I think there's 5 or 6 of them. As governor, what can you do for them?
Send them home.
How? If they're locked up in D.C., how are you going to get them home?
I'll get them home. Whatever it takes. We will find a way to do it. Why was Todd Engel locked up for 3 years and never charged with anything? Because nobody would step up to the plate and take it on.
Yeah, but then he did end up getting convicted, and then it had to be overturned by the
Supreme Court.
the circuit court.
Circuit Court, no.
Yeah, and they vacated his conviction. They chose not to retry it. I can tell you every detail of that.
Yeah. So,
They went down the wrong road. Ultimately.
Well, my problem is we have a lot of political prisoners incarcerated in D.C. over January 6th when they went to do a protest. Period.
yeah.
Protest, a First Amendment.
Yeah, and that was a stage deal. They had their plants in it. There's nothing that keeps me from putting a BLM shirt on.
Where's Redoubt?
I'm a 100% conservative Republican,
We
but I can go and register as a
Idaho
Democrat.
citizens incarcerated for a protest.
Yeah. The governor and the AG could sue the federal government to get them released, but they're not doing it. Why? Because we don't have an AG. Or
We don't
governor.
have a single person in Boise trying to get them released that I have.
Right.
Correct. You know,
Because your AG at every Lincoln Day event we have been to has stated his job is to defend the governor and the state,
the bureaucracy.
the bureaucracy. His job is not to defend the people. That is the words that has come out of his mouth.
That's right.
Because he honestly believes that. He does not understand what an AG is supposed to do. He thinks his job is to defend the governor. He's the chief law enforcement officer in the state of Idaho. His job is to make sure that rule of law is followed by all. For the people. By the people and of the people. But he got elected into that office and has been there for 21 years.
Crookedness.
But I think part of that problem is the people are not educated. They do
The
not
people-
know.
The people have, nobody's telling them, nobody will come and speak out. Everybody's afraid to make waves. I never got the email.
Well, that's why we call them the reasonable Republicans. They want to be reasonable. They want to compromise their values.
Some things you don't compromise on. You don't compromise on your freedom. You don't compromise on your religion. And you don't compromise on your family. If you compromise on any of those, you don't deserve any of them. If you're not willing to lay down your life for your wife and kids, you don't deserve a wife and kids. If you're not willing to lay your life down for a free country, you don't deserve to live there.
You sound like Ben Franklin.
I've heard of him. I've read some of his stuff. Yeah.
You have a similar hairstyle.
So, any questions I'll take.
Oh, you were looking at me a minute ago.
Well, you always got questions. You come up with good ones.
We're gonna have to get them in writing.
Huh?
We're gonna have to get the questions in writing so that we can pen them out.
The kind of people all
Like
like to
they did
hang.
in the White House, right? No, we're gonna ask for your, you. Okay.
Yeah, the kind of people all like to hang with is like this guy over here, retired brigadier general. This guy over here, retired lieutenant colonel. About 5 weeks ago, sat over there in Columbia Bank in the little restaurant and had breakfast with a guy by the name of Jim Lindell. And I'm thinking,
Is he really?
this guy could kill everybody in this room before we even get the thought of how we're going to drink our coffee. He's the commander of SEAL Team 6 that took out bin Laden. It's like one of the greatest honors in my life to sit down with this guy.
You didn't invite me to join you. I am so upset.
No, it's so odd that I didn't have time to call
You really
you.
owe me a big.
It was a hit and run. SEAL guys don't waste no time. They don't hang around signing autographs.
Oh, is that what you think I would do, is ask for his autograph?
No, I shook his hand and told him thank you.
That's right.
How are we gonna keep Idaho, Idaho? How are we gonna keep
Right.
the agriculture? How are we gonna keep the?
You get a governor in there that
Take
knows
the
what
land
Idaho
back.
is and willing to fight and keep it.
You're talking a lot of generalities. We want more specifics.
What do you want?
Well, it's like you say, well, we will fight the feds to get the J6 people back. We will, we've got a plan to get the federal lands back. You're not giving us specifics. You're giving us your very general answers. We want more. How are you going to keep Idaho, Idaho, as far as, like he says, the farming and agriculture, and as far as everything else? We want more specific. What's your plan? Janice came out with a 10-point plan. Tell us yours.
Yeah, she also came out and told you that she's gonna fix everything and she can't balance her own budget.
Okay, I'm not asking about Janice, I'm asking about you though.
Yeah,
Tell
I'll
us.
look at the problem. This week, I will be down there. I'll be touring the ranches with the water district guy, talking on water issues.
Can you
finding out what
can
the
you help
farmers
every individual Idaho resident keep their water rights?
I believe the water rights goes to the land that the water's on. It's not a mined substance. Everybody has the right to what is on their property. And
But you know
everybody
they're
has,
taking the water rights away from the people. You
not
know
if I'm
that's happening.
governor.
You can give it back to them after they've taken it away if you
I
were
can.
governor?
Governor has the power of executive orders. And no executive order prior to that can encumber the guy coming in. He can reverse every one of them. So you look at each problem, you don't just look at it and go, oh, I'm going to cure it this way. You have to look at it, okay, here would be a fix, but what's the repercussion? What's the ripple effect? What's the effect 5 years down the road? We fix the water for this farmer. how does it affect everybody else? There's more than just the one issue. It covers a whole lot of, and you've got to explore all those things, and you get people on your staff to get you that information so that you can account for all the ripple effects.
We're working on the ripples.
We're working on the ripples.
There's a lot of
I'll
ripples.
be down there with the ranchers, talking about their
I've got a very
needs.
hard question for you.
Yeah,
It's a tough one,
okay.
very political
I'll
question.
try not to cry.
It's a very political question. As a pastor, I know what you're going to tell me as far as pro-life goes, and you are obviously 110% pro-life.
Yeah.
My question is, do you believe abortion is murder, and would you support repercussions for anybody that had one?
Well, I don't know that you could make that retroactive. I don't think it would be fair,
What do
you know.
I don't mean,
As far as me,
I'm
I
talking about.
count it
once
murder.
You count it as murder.
Yeah.
If a bill got passed or proposed saying there should be repercussions for anybody that has an abortion or performs an abortion or coerces somebody into having an abortion,
Those would be criminal offenses,
there's
if
my
I had
question.
my way.
Okay.
And here's the
There's
deal.
my question.
And here's
That's
the
a
deal.
very political
And
question.
we've heard all the different propositions for laws and stuff surrounding abortion. I'm a pastor. Most people will tell you life begins at conception. It actually begins before that, because he knew you before you were in your mother's womb. Taking that right there, let's say my mother was raped and I was the product of it. At what age is it okay to kill me? 67? 6 days? 6 weeks? 16?
You actually
At what
have
day killing me is okay?
You actually have Democrats proposing laws that allow them to kill the baby up to 28 days after it's born.
They can explain that to God when they stand
I
before Him.
agree with you, I understand that.
Yeah,
But
but-
as my governor, I need to know how strong you can be on that. That's-
Oh, I can be 100% strong. I don't care about the backlash. I'm not a politician.
Well,
I am not in it about the
murder
politics.
could
I'm in it about the
cover a-
policy.
Murder could call for a capital punishment. Would you support that?
Yes, I would.
Key is you got nothing to lose.
Hmm?
You got nothing to lose.
I got nothing to lose. What are they gonna do, kill me? That's been tried 3 times
Yeah, fail.
by somebody much stronger than them. Satan has took 3 good shots at it and hadn't pulled it off.
Oh, Satan hasn't tried yet. Satan's too afraid of you to try.
You know why he can't pull it off? Because he can't kill one of God's kids without God's permission.
That's right.
He can put the temptation out there. He can make stuff happen in front of you. But he only has the power that you give him. If you don't give it to him, he just has to sit there and be him. And fuss about it, cry about it. He has a problem with me, tell him to check with my dad. Let me know how that works out for him. Who brought donuts?
That was Lewis's job.
Yeah.
Nope.
I actually have a donut in the car if you want.
No donuts.
How long has it been there? Yeah.
Tonight.
If it's been as long as the one in the back of my truck, no, that's not bad. You can use that one for a weapon if you got a slingshot.
Will chalk.
So, anybody got any questions? Tough questions,
Oh,
light
tough.
questions, general questions? General questions, colonel questions, sergeant questions?
Yeah, I've got
Too
Sorry.
late. Too late.
We know where you live.
I've got
There's
2
that.
questions,
Okay.
which are very different than ARPA and what we've been talking about. The first one, I just found out about the light rail plans a couple days ago from Spokane to Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah,
I saw what they did to the Bay Area with their park
Yeah, that-
extension.
Yeah, that makes about as much sense as socks on a rooster.
Thank you.
Seattle's terrible.
Mhm.
Stop
And
How
my,
many people in Idaho are gonna use the light rail from Coeur d'Alene to Skokie?
well, look what Newsom's been doing in Pelosi and with their light rail from the Central Valley to nowhere, to train to
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah, nobody's using it.
That's been proposed for 30 years, that rail in California, over 30 years, and broke rail.
Right.
So,
And all it's doing is gotten gang members into locations.
that's what it does.
Yeah.
It's a corridor for crime.
Right, that's what I saw
That's what they
happen in East Bay when they expanded.
Yep.
When they expanded
So-
to Pleasanton.
So that gets everyone back into the mindset of law and order, right? The laws need to be enforced.
Yeah.
That's really where we are. That's what's caused, I think,
Well, I heard
Where our
last
nation
night,
the rule of law is not being
County
followed.
Central Republican Committee, that MS-13 is in Coeur d'Alene, but they're in jail.
That's a good place for them.
Whoop-de-doo, but let's keep them out of here.
You know why they're in jail? Recruiting.
And they should-
I wanna find criminals to join my gang. Where's the best place to locate them? Sheriff Wheeler's jail.
That's right. We're gonna have,
He's got them in a group there. I don't have to go and look for them. I just go there, they're all there.
it's like a job fair.
And if I can sit in there long enough, I meet more of them.
And there's different levels of criminals, MS-13
Yeah,
is top of the charts.
they're a bloody bunch.
Oh, they're bad. They're probably the worst.
They are a bloody bunch.
My other concern is the data center that they're gonna put in Kuna.
But what?
The data center.
The Facebook data center.
Oh,
Yeah, they're gonna be using 170 million of gallons of water per day.
Per day.
Per day.
yeah.
Where's that water gonna come from?
Well, a
We
year.
saw what they did in Mono, and I think we've had that conversation.
Yeah, as governor, water priorities, ranching and farming, number one. Residents, number two. Industry after that. Because if you don't have food, you don't eat.
And I-
You don't eat, it ain't gonna matter.
Right. My concern is they're gonna steal.
If you don't take care of the core, the peeling ain't gonna make any difference.
Right.
You start taking away the core, the whole fruit will rot. So, it's a common sense thing. It's not rocket science.
Right.
It gets in depth and detailed, but it's still common sense. You gotta take care of what's important first. If you keep your priorities prioritized and number one stays number one, number two will fall into place, and 3 and 4 and 5. But if number one is not where number one needs to be, nothing's gonna be in the place it's supposed to be. That's just basic. No matter how technical it is, it's basic theory.
I don't know where Sherry went.
I'm right here.
My answer, oh, there you are. My answer to her would be, the general's not gonna tell you what his attack plan is. He's gonna implement it and get on with it. So asking Steve specifics of how you're gonna do that,
Sometimes you need a specific, you don't need a general. You need to know that he actually has a plan.
we need a leader. He said he's got a plan and it's
Well, I need
subject
to
to
know, I need to
change.
know that he
The
actually has.
the general will tell you, he can be the best general in the world, but if he don't have good colonels, lieutenants, majors,
Exactly.
sergeant majors, and doers, he's just occupying
You've got to
space.
align your ducks.
He needs a team that he can say, this is what we're gonna do.
And let's get after it.
You specialize in this, you specialize in this, you specialize in that. You make sure that A10's fueled up and ready for us. And let's get this job done. It's a team thing.
Steve, I got two things. The first is the leader comes up with an objective, the staff comes up with a plan. So the guys that he has working for him, they're gonna find out.
They're the engineers.
But the question I had, so bear with me guys, my stories are like this now, they don't go like this like they used to. When I retired here, I got my commission at the University of Idaho. And then I was lucky enough to come back and I led the organization for 3 years, from 04 to 07. While I was there, I did a courtesy call down to the TAG, down in Boise. I think it was General Sailor at the time, I can't remember now. Anyway, two-star down there. And hey sir, thanks for seeing me, you know, I'm new here, but I'm an Idaho guy, I'm back. And got to talk to him at that time, and that was when Iraq and Afghanistan was going on, and Katrina was going on like crazy. 85% of the Idaho Guard was outside of Idaho. They were forward deployed. And I've got this idea that there are several states in the Union that have a defense force. That they're volunteers, they don't get paid, their main objective is they fall in when the National Guard is deployed, federalized, mainly last time World War II. They fall in and they do staff work and they do administrative functions for the National Guard when they go. But they only work for the state and the governor, and they can't be federalized. They only work for the governor.
Right.
Would you support with everything going on in the world right now? And if so, how would we start putting that together? Because I've approached this to several career officers and were, yeah, great idea. And the National Guard, the Idaho Guard, said, another level of bureaucracy. Granted, it is. But I know Virginia has one, mostly aviators, just the way it worked out. They were out of Fort A.P. Hill, there's a big airfield there. Washington State has one, you don't hear about it much. And they don't get used much. They're volunteers, mostly retired guys and gals. Would you support something like that? And if so,
Idaho Constitution actually has a pathway for that,
how come we don't do it?
because you don't have a governor with a backbone to repair.
Okay. All right. You're aware of it, though?
I am.
Okay. And my gripe on it, I almost swore there, my gripe on it was always that it's not a militia, it's got to work for elected officials. It's got to be somebody who's already in charge, the
Right.
governor, the sheriff, the commission, somebody. But it can't be somebody who just goes up and say, look, I've got a good idea. Yeah, but who do you work for?
Yeah,
So
somebody's got to be accountable.
I've already put together an action plan on it. I researched it. I put together, there's US code for it already. All we'd have to do is put it in the state constitution. It falls initially under the tag and runs under that way, but it's a way for the Idaho Guard to support itself once they're federalized. With everything going on right now, we're slipping into something we don't have control of.
If we don't secure the state,
That's
we're gonna
right.
lose it.
The feds
You see that coming.
are out of control right now.
Well,
I think the state's
Well,
out of
just everybody has their thing. My thing, I did too long overseas, and I look at what's going on overseas. We are going to be drug into something. Last time it happened like this, we started bringing guys into the service about a year before World War II. And if we don't have a plan and ready to actionize it, okay, but it just makes it harder. So anyway, right, everybody has their own little pet thing, but that's mine right now. I've actually got a,
You have his information, don't you?
Yes.
We'll
yeah,
make sure, right?
You gotta have a relationship built, established before anything happens.
That's right.
If you don't have that, it's too late.
Then it's chaos. Yeah.
right,
That's what
Yeah.
we're gonna say.
And
right.
I read in a book where there is no vision, people perish. So you plan for the worst, and then you live life to the best. But you stay prepared. Chance favors the prepared mind. Yes, sir.
So that resident in the White House, he has destroyed our borders.
Yeah.
And the little rhino in the State House, he has opened arms to the Afghanis.
Day one.
To,
Day one. That will shut off on day one.
or how are we gonna get them
This will
out
not,
of here? It's already
Idaho
there.
will not be a refugee dump.
There's gonna be accountability. It's
We
gonna,
got people that are here.
But once
illegally.
they're here before day one,
it don't matter.
they're gonna
You
stay?
know why
If
they're
they're illegal.
coming? You may help you with that?
Yeah, help me with that.
Okay. I helped you with where the surplus came from. All right. Follow the math. Your governor is in the ranching business. What is a lot of his ranching business? Dairy cows. What's the biggest single business in southern Idaho? Giovanni Yogurt. Now, Giovanni is not an Italian name. It is a Middle Eastern name. For every refugee that Giovanni hires, the federal government pays half that person's salary and their benefits. So, as a business owner, I only have to pay my employees half as much and I don't have to pay the benefits. So and I speak the language. This will work for me. But the government only subsidizes Abdul's pay here for only X number of months, like a year maybe. I'm not sure what the time period is. So at the end of a year, we have to do a full cleansing of the plant, so everybody is laid off, and we'll call you back when it's time to come back to work. Well, I don't call him back because I have to pay him full price. I get the new refugee here and put him in his place and train him to do that job. But I'm charging you the same price for my yogurt that Yoplait charges for theirs. And it only cost me half the labor cost. But there's nothing suspicious about that. That's why you keep seeing them come in. Because he's pushing them out into the public. And it's a problem in the Magic Valley. It is a big problem in the Magic Valley. It has bumped the crime rate up phenomenally. That'll stop on day one. That will stop on day one. That I can promise you. And when the forensic audit is done, how did they used to say it? Just another guy up the river. Because they'll all be a candidate for Cottonwood University. Isn't that where our prison is, Cottonwood? Our state facility? Some of them will probably get the nicer one, the federal. And what's nice about the federal pen for them guys? They don't get short time for good behavior. Judge gives you 2 years, you get 2 years. It's a beautiful thing. Rule of law is nice. It only bothers them that will fall victim to it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.